Welcome back to another Saxton podcast. After a week hiatus, we're back. I imagine everybody's prepping for the storm. So before we get into the football pod, I'll bring in our weather expert, Deuce. What are we looking at this weekend?
Well, first of all, good reason for the hiatus last week. Congratulations to you and the lovely wife, the future Ryder Cupper, Keegan Davis.
Thank you.
Weather-wise, big storm. That's all I can say. Up and down the East Coast, monster snowstorm. One of the bigger ones we've seen in our lifetime if you're under the age of 40. I will say the one place that looks like it might be spared is up in the extreme northeast, Boston. NEPA looks like it won't get much. New York City, tough call. But for you in Philly, Jersey, Baltimore, D.C., even our friend Coach down in Richmond, big snows.
Yeah, so perfect weekend to hunker down and listen to the pod tomorrow or Saturday.
Oh, yeah, definitely. This is going to be one of the better sport weekends in a while just because you're forced to watch it.
I was just going to say, this is almost the sports gods and the weather gods converged to give us this storm to sit at home and watch sports all weekend.
Yep, exactly.
Well, let's get right into last week's action. Your takeaways or thoughts from the divisional games?
The Packers-Cardinals, unfortunately, I was at a wedding. Not sure why people do that to other people, but I did not see it live, so I had to go back and watch it on NFL Network's replay. One of the better playoff games that I've seen in a while, I think. And I, for one, didn't think it would be that close of a game, but a really fun game to watch.
Yeah, I agree. I was happy to see Fitzgerald step up. Of all the guys left in the playoffs, I think he deserves to win a Super Bowl. But they were not sharp at all.
Just going back on Fitzgerald for a second, I saw a stat from his draft, which I think was 2004.
Yes.
Could be wrong. Him and Jericho Cotcher are the only wide receivers from that draft left playing in the NFL.
While we're on the topic of that game, what do you think about the overtime rules? Are you okay with them? Should they be changed for the playoffs? What are your thoughts?
I might be in the minority, but I like them. I saw some people say that, it should just be each team should get a possession, blah, blah, blah. But I'm still in the camp where I think this is a happy in-between. I was never a fan of just whoever wins the coin toss gets a chance to win. But I like the fact that if you hold the other team to a field goal, you still have a chance. Just don't let them score a touchdown, and you have a chance. So I kind of like it. I'm not a big fan of the college football overtime rules.
No, I'm with you. I think the NFL rules are pretty good. I'm actually surprised at how much talk there is about changing them or unhappiness with them.
I agree. So am I. I didn't think it was that big of a controversy, actually.
And then how great was that throw Aaron Rodgers made? Just the catch was great, but
I was going to say he might have the greatest arm talent I've ever seen with my own eyes.
It was unbelievable.
That throw on the run, opposite of his shoulder, was unbelievable.
A guy in his face.
Yeah, and I'm not, the people say it was 2 Hail Marys in a row. The one from his end zone to get to the 50 wasn't a Hail Mary at all. It was just an absolute dime to Jeff Janis.
Yeah.
It was not a Hail Mary. He absolutely put the ball perfectly to a guy that was essentially in single coverage. There was a safety kind of near him, but not really.
I meant to bring this up when we covered the week after the Lions game in which Rodgers completed the Hail Mary. In that game, why wasn't Calvin Johnson on the field to try and knock the Hail Mary down? And in this game, why was Fitzgerald or Michael Floyd not on the field?
Agree. I think it should have been Michael Floyd back there, especially since the Cardinals blitzed, I believe.
Yeah, I think they brought 6.
Have Michael Floyd standing on the goal line.
Yeah, I agree.
He's still an athlete. Let's say they try the old lateral play. He's still athletic enough to make a tackle, right?
Yeah, I agree.
So I'm with you. I don't get it. To further the point, I don't understand why teams don't chuck the ball up in the air like that more often.
When you're looking at 3rd and 20 or more, I agree. If it's intercepted, it's as good as a
Why
punt.
not? First of all, you're not going to be in the situation where there's 4 or 5 guys down there. At worst, you'll have triple coverage.
And
at worst, most of the time it's probably double coverage. You're going to get a flag probably 30% of the time. If you're throwing up to a guy that's 6'6", he's going to come down with it some of the time.
Your thoughts on the catch rules?
I don't know. I honestly I have no idea.
Does that have to be?
I thought I had a pretty good grasp coming into this year because I understood the Calvin Johnson and the Des Bryant situations. But then the Golden Tate one earlier this year just completely threw me for a loop, and I have no idea what is what anymore.
Every time they review it for a catch, I just go back to the text that you sent me earlier in the year that you don't even know anymore. And I just laugh because it's true. It's almost like you flip a coin when they go under the hood.
Yeah, and I was just because I guess it was already a rule, I was a pretty big backer of the NFL with the whole Calvin Johnson thing, right? He caught it, and then when he hit the ground, the ball came out. That was pretty clear to understand to me. You cannot let the ball come out of control once you hit the ground. But now it seems like there's 10 other layers that we've uncovered that I don't understand at all.
Yeah, it has become more complicated. Does that have to be number one topic this offseason with the competition committee?
Has to. I think that and some of the flags for, I guess before the Pittsburgh-Cincinnati game, I would have said some of the flags for hits that look bad but really aren't bad at all. But now that'll probably just get worse.
Right, I agree.
But yeah, the catch thing they have to do something about. There has to be some kind of clear delineation, especially around the goal line, because that's when it seems like no one has any clue.
Yeah. Sticking in the NFC, your thoughts on the Seattle-Carolina game?
I was shocked. I really, really liked Seattle. I just thought they were a better team. I thought their defense would give Carolina trouble. Because if you shut Carolina's run game down, I'm not sure how they beat you. But it was just they got punched in the mouth and could never recover.
Yeah, I didn't understand their defensive game plan at all.
I didn't either. I actually put this loss on Pete Carroll more than anyone. Now, Russell Wilson played awful, in my opinion, but I think the loss is on Pete Carroll.
Yeah, I think it has to start there. I thought it was definitely coaching early that got them behind. Russell Wilson's pick 6 to Kuechly didn't help, but I didn't think they were in a great position without that even.
I just didn't. I know they like to play zone, but I'm not sure why you're not bringing Cam or Thomas down the box to stop Stewart early. I mean, that first drive, he just did whatever he wanted.
Well, not only that, there's no reason to play zone against Carolina's receivers.
Exactly. I mean, I get it, Ted Ginn's fast, but you're telling me Richard Sherman can't cover him one-on-one?
Yeah, I agree.
And Gray Olsen has 6 catches again. I just don't understand. I think we've said it for 28 straight weeks. Just double cover the guy.
It's amazing that it happens the whole game, but when Carolina needs a first down late in the game, when Seattle was making their move trying to come back, he catches 2 balls for first downs to extend drives.
I know. And they have the most athletic safety in the league probably, in Earl Thomas.
Yeah, you're right.
It's mind-boggling. I don't get it. I don't know. Maybe I'm not smart enough to understand, because I know when I'm playing Madden, if I'm playing against Gronk, that's what I do.
Speaking of Gronk, your thoughts on the Kansas City-New England game?
I thought it was a good game. It pretty much went the way we discussed through text. I thought Alex Smith actually looked pretty good. Justin Houston was active. I'm not sure if I saw him on the field for more than 15 snaps, if that. So that lack of pressure on Brady, I think, was basically game, set, match. And you saw how much better their offense is with Edelman back in the fold. So, I thought the Chiefs played pretty well. There was an Andy Reid clock management moment, but I don't think it killed them. And, they had a good season, but New England was just a better team.
It would have been interesting to see what would have happened if Kansas City doesn't fumble in the third quarter when they were driving. I still think they lose, but
big fumble.
It changes the game completely.
Yeah, big fumble. I actually think Kansas City is I think they probably have a top to bottom better roster when everyone's healthy. And I think that was just another one of those games where Jamal Charles not being there really, really showed.
Yeah, I agree with you. I thought they had a good game plan. And they were moving the ball at ease against New England, and then that fumble came, and then they were playing catch-up, and Kansas City's not a catch-up team.
New England's defense didn't look healthy to me. I know that a lot of those guys were just coming back, but that's why I bring up Jamal Charles. If you have him coming out of the backfield, I don't think there's a guy on New England's team that can cover him right now.
No, I agree, and I'm interested to get into the New England-Denver breakdown with because I thought the same as you that New England did not look good on defense.
No, not at all.
And then going to the Denver-Pittsburgh game, your thoughts there?
I think Pittsburgh showed everybody that they're the far better team. I still don't know how Denver won. I thought Pittsburgh played pretty well. I thought Ben looked pretty good. Martavis Bryant had a couple drops that hurt them, and then Fitzgerald, you saw it, they were up by,
Yep.
I think they were up 1, and they were driving. I mean, they were just chunking yardage, and then that fumble the game completely changed the game.
How valuable is Antonio Brown and Rob Gronkowski to those two teams?
Yeah, you can almost say they're invaluable, right? I think when they're out, they're 500 teams at best.
Yeah, one of the things I text you to prepare for this podcast was that they'll probably never win the MVP of the league, but you could probably make the argument they're two of the most valuable players in the league.
100% agree. Antonio Brown's the best receiver in the league. Don't get me wrong, but I think Gronk is head and shoulders more important to his team.
Yeah. I saw a tweet. Somebody tweeted that there should be another league higher than the NFL that Gronk should have to play in because it's not fair to the NFL guys.
And I'm actually, I know there's been a lot of trash talk, and who knows what's true, but I'm actually worried for him this weekend that he's going to get both of his legs blown up this weekend because the guys are just going to dive at his knees every play.
Yeah, my thoughts were the same as yours on the Denver-Pittsburgh game, and that's the early game Sunday, so let's hop right into the breakdown. New England was a 3-point favorite. It opened at. It's still there. I think it may have gone to 3.5 at some spots, but I've seen it 3 in most spots when I came on to this podcast. So your thoughts?
My thoughts. When the line first came out, and we were talking about it right after the games last weekend, I actually liked Denver quite a bit in that game. I have since changed my tune, and I kind of lean New England here. I know Denver has a better defense. They're probably the best defense in the league. The lack of pass rush that Denver got on Ben last weekend scares me. And, great career, Hall of Famer, one of the best ever, but I just think Belichick is going to figure out a way to cause a turnover or two from Peyton Manning, even though he looks very cautious. I just don't see Manning being able to make any plays against New England. Now, I do think they can run the ball. I think C.J. Anderson, I've been pumping him forever, can have a big game, but I worry that New England stacks the line, and there's not much respect for the deep ball from Manning anymore.
Yeah, you led me right into my question. We all know Belichick likes to take away what you do best. Who does Belichick target this week to take away?
I think in a normal circumstance, he would take away Demaryius Thomas. But I think this week he tries to take away the run game.
Yeah, I agree. I think he has to make
that would be
Peyton
my guess.
Make Peyton beat you.
Yeah, they have some decent secondary players. They don't really match up well against Thomas, but I think if you have McCourty and Logan Ryan and Malcolm Butler, I think you can do okay if you stack the box.
Denver has to be successful running the ball to win this game?
Yes, in my opinion.
To the other side of the ball, what does Denver have to do to beat New England defensively?
I mean, this is where I think this is everything right here. This is the game. Edelman changes everything. I assume Chris Harris will be on him, and I assume, I could be wrong about this, but I think they'll probably stick Talib on Gronk and give him some safety help. Now, I don't know how Josh McDaniels will combat that. But that's how I would attack it if I were Denver's defense. Now, Brady's so good, he'll find, Brandon LaFell, or who stinks, by the way, or Danny Amendola or James White, who usually finds a way, even if you take his best player away. But
that was going to be my under-the-radar player. If you could find a prop on him, James White. I think that's who they're going to go to combat Gronk being doubled.
Yeah, I like that call, especially out of the backfield, catching the ball.
Yeah.
I would, if this line were the same and Deion Lewis was in the game, I would absolutely love New England because he's the type of guy that would shred Denver's defense.
Yeah, I like Denver's linebackers as pass rushers, but I do think New England has the advantage with White out of the backfield.
Denver, Von Miller and DeMarcus Ware and Derek Wolfe have to have big games, I think. They need to be in Brady's face every play to win the game. I'm leaning New England just because I think they have more ways to beat Denver than Denver has ways to beat New England.
We exchanged texts during that game last week, and while we're on the topic of Denver, your thoughts on Gary Kubiak as a coach?
Hate him. If I was a Denver fan, I'd want him out of town immediately.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat as you. I can't believe the clamoring for him to come back to Denver when he was let go by Houston.
I know you obviously know better than anyone, but Chip gets bashed for play calling and game plans. Opinion on if Kubiak might have worse game plans and is a worse play caller than Chip Kelly?
For the last 7 to 10 weeks, we've come on to preview and give our thoughts on the week prior. And every single week, you've banged the drum for C.J. Anderson or Hillman to carry the ball. And they're never anywhere to be found. And the 5 times they touch it a game, they make a difference.
Yeah.
I think
it's weird. They're almost setting themselves up to be successful because last week, I'm not anywhere close to an expert on being a defense coordinator, but Pittsburgh knew every play that was coming from Denver last week. It was essentially a run, pass type of scheme, and Pittsburgh, they finally wore down at the end and got tired after that turnover, but they weren't giving up anything early in the game.
I remember some of the second half of the previous Denver-New England matchup this year, and it seemed when they started handing the ball off to Anderson is when they started to get back in the game. I think New England had a 10-point lead in the second half.
You're 100%. I think it was actually 21-7.
Yeah, I think you're right.
And C.J. Anderson started getting the ball, and they started just breaking off chunk runs. Now, the weather was bad. I haven't looked at the weather forecast in Denver yet, but I think he gives them the best chance to win because I don't trust New England's defense to continuously stop the run.
I know New England got a couple of linemen back, and they're a little bit more healthy, but I do remember from that game that Brady got beat up.
Yes, I think you're right. I could be wrong, but I think Derek Wolfe up the middle was in his face the entire game.
Yeah.
So I don't remember. Did Gronk play the whole game, or is that the game he got hurt in?
That was the game he got hurt. Late third quarter, early fourth, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. So obviously that changes everything. Denver safeties can't come cheat up to the line, but still. I think you're right. I think that Denver defensive line has a lot of pressure on it.
I went and looked at some of the props. I'll run them by you. Let me know if anything sticks out. Brady, 287.5 passing yards.
Man, that's a tough one because they might not run the ball once. But I kind of like the under.
They're both minus 115.
I don't want any part of that, then.
Brady, 2 touchdown passes.
I like the push there.
Brady, at least 1 interception.
No, he can't bet on that. He never turns it over.
No, it's plus 125.
Really?
Yes.
Give me that.
Edelman, 82.5 receiving yards.
He's one of my favorite players in the league, so I'm not touching that one.
Gronk, 76.5 receiving yards.
You gotta think he's gonna go over that. I don't know how you cover the guy. I know I tried to lay out something earlier with Talib and his safety, but I just don't know how you cover him.
Yeah, I don't know either. It's hard for.
Honestly, I think when people say, "Oh, that guy's impossible," I think he really is impossible to cover.
Yeah, it's. I know we sit here and we say double him, double Antonio Brown, but it's hard for the. It's hard for the safety to double on those out routes.
Right, exactly.
Peyton Manning completions over under 21.5.
I don't like either one.
Manning touchdown passes 1.5.
That's a great number. I would go. I actually might go over because I think they throw around the goal line.
Plus 105.
Yeah, I don't love that, but that's a sneaky one. I can see him having, like 2 touchdowns, 2 picks type of game.
Demaryius Thomas, 74.5 receiving yards.
I like under on that one. I think he had one catch last time they played.
At minus 115?
That's a little too much juice for me. Maybe minus 105.
Emmanuel Sanders, 76.5 receiving.
He might be the guy that goes over. My guess is they'll stick Logan Ryan on Demaryius Thomas with McCourty helping, and stick Malcolm Butler on Sanders. Sanders is pretty quick in the slot.
Yeah, I think
kind of like the over there.
That's all the props I was able to find. I'm sure there's more, but those were the main ones.
I don't love a ton in that game. I'm not really sure what to expect. I think a lot has to do with game planning, which, if Denver decides to come out and pound, obviously those Manning props are going to be unders.
And before we get to your final prediction, I know the text was going back and forth last week. Who do you take career-wise, Roethlisberger or Manning?
Man, I loved this text question.
Because I think Brady Manning is over. You just laugh at people who argue that.
Yeah, that's dumb. I'm not sure how that's even still an argument. Now, if you had this argument with just a person on the street, Peyton Manning's numbers are so much better than Ben's. It's hard to make the argument. But Ben has been pretty good in the playoffs, and I know that first year he won a ring or whatever, his defense was really good. Obviously, his defense has been much better than Peyton's. But I think you can argue pretty easily that Peyton's had better weapons the last 10 years than Roethlisberger has.
Absolutely.
Only recently has Roethlisberger had any weapons.
Absolutely. The Super Bowl that he won against Arizona, Hines Ward and Santonio Holmes, not exactly household receiver names. Obviously, yeah. Hines Ward, a great blocker, and Santonio never did anything after he left Pittsburgh.
Right, and I'm not even sure who the running back was.
I think I asked you last week. I don't remember either.
I have no idea. He's got Le'Veon Bell now. People will say, oh, he's got Antonio Brown, Le'Veon Bell. Well, really, they've only been on the field together probably 15 games in their careers, it feels like.
Yeah.
If you're asking me which guy do I want to win one playoff game, it would be Ben. 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Because obviously Peyton now is
yeah, definitely
a lot different. 5 years ago, I would want Ben.
Final prediction for the AFC.
I'm going to go New England 23, Denver 16. What do you got?
I'm with you on New England until somebody shows me they could beat Brady and Belichick in a game like this. I know Peyton Manning's done it twice in the conference title games, but this is not the same Peyton Manning.
No.
I don't have faith in Gary Kubiak to do what we've said, to lay it out. I have to lean New England here, and I think they cover. I would say 24-20.
We've talked about a million things in this game. You can just boil it down to one thing that I trust more. The Patriots have the best turnover margin in the league, and the Broncos have the worst.
And the other thing, I trust Gostowski more than I trust Brandon McManus.
Yeah, good point, especially in that atmosphere, in that stadium. Gostowski could probably make one from 65 if he had to.
Yeah, this will definitely be an interesting game to watch as far as back and forth and adjustments go.
Yeah, I think if you're tuning in, I think the first quarter could be maybe the most boring quarter of football that you've ever watched.
Yeah, I agree. I think I don't know what it is, but the interesting might be the first half over/under number.
Yeah, I like the under whatever the first half is.
Yeah.
I could see this like 6-3 at halftime, 6-0, something like that.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a feeling out period, and somebody just trying not to make a mistake. Field position game early.
I agree, totally.
Over to the NFC. Carolina opened as a 3-point favorite hosting Arizona. I have not seen it move off that number all week.
I'll kick this one to you for your thoughts to start off.
I've leaned Arizona ever since the Seattle-Carolina game ended last week, and I've seen nothing to make me change my mind. I think a lot of people are going to be down on Arizona after their performance last week and high on Carolina after their performance. But I think Arizona matches up really well offensively versus Carolina's defense, especially at the wide receiver position.
Yeah, if there's a glaring weakness in Carolina's team, it's their secondary. I know people will say, "Oh, well, they got Josh Norman." Well, yeah, he's great and he's great in what he does, but he gets beat one-on-one sometimes, and their safeties are atrocious.
Yes.
So I think you're spot on. I think Arians is going to want to attack them deep. I think you'll see a lot of 4 wide receiver sets with Floyd, the 2 Browns, and Fitzgerald with David Johnson coming out of the backfield. My hesitation with that is Carolina's front 7 is so good, and their front 4 is so good, that I can see them getting to Carson Palmer very quickly and not letting those deep routes even affect the game.
That's where I definitely agree with you there. Green Bay was getting pressure on Palmer last week, and they're not even close to the caliber that front 7 is in Carolina.
Right, especially in the interior with Shorten and Starr. That middle pressure against Palmer scares me because he's really good, but he's not the best at dealing with pressure up the middle.
I think this boils down to what quarterback makes more mistakes. The other team's going to win. I think Arizona is going to make Cam Newton beat them with his arm.
I really wish Honey Badger was playing because I think he could completely take Olsen out of the game by himself. Just the more I looked at the metrics this year for defensive backs, Tyrann Mathieu is like at the top 5 of every single metric. He might be the best complete defensive back there is playing right now. So him being out worries me a little bit, but no one in Carolina scares me besides Olsen. I think they're going to obviously try to establish Jonathan Stewart early and often. And Cam, Cam just does. He's just good. He's just really good at not making mistakes and making the play when it's there. I actually would love to see Carolina's offense get him on the edge a little bit and run a little bit more. Because we haven't seen that very much this year. I think that would throw Arizona off.
Yeah, that is interesting. I think you're right on with that. They've done that fake handoff out of the shotgun, but I haven't seen them bootleg him that much or get him out on the edge that often.
Yeah, exactly. The bootleg I would love to see because he's huge, but he can also make guys miss. I think it would be a wrinkle that would really change the dynamic of their offense a little bit, especially in this game. I personally don't really have a lean. If you force me to pick somebody, I think I actually like Carolina.
Interesting.
I know. I hated Carolina all year, and I loved Arizona. And I was on Arizona early in the year, and you hated them, and now we're both going opposite ways.
I did not expect you to say that.
Don't get me wrong. If we were throwing all the coaches into a pool and we were drafting coaches, Belichick goes 1, probably, right?
Yeah, no doubt.
I think I'd go Arians, too.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, Rivera's got a
just that good.
Great defense in Cam Newton, so I don't know how great he is, but Arians has proved it in all the stops that he's made with his offense.
And I think I texted you this week that in this game planning matchup, we match up the offense and defense and all that and players. But I think the coaching, there's a matchup there too. And just like the last game where I think Belichick is a huge overmatching matchup problem for Kubiak, I think it's the same in this game, not the same extent, but I really like Arians against Rivera. I really am scared about Carson Palmer getting knocked around early in the game and him pressing.
Yeah, that's a very good point. I could certainly see that happening. He tried to give the game away, in fact, last week against Green Bay.
I think Arizona is a better football team, and I love how they attack downfield. And I think they can do that. If their line can hold up, I think they can really put some points up against Carolina. I just trust Carolina's front seven in total more than I trust Arizona's offensive line.
Do you think Johnson could have any success running the ball?
Yes, I was just about to get there. I've been plugging David Johnson for weeks, and he killed Philly in that one game. I think he can have success out of the backfield as a pass catcher. I worry about him running the ball. I don't know if he can find many holes against this Carolina defense, but I would not be shocked if you see a couple plays where Larry Fitzgerald is in that tight end or close slot position, throwing blocks, and they get David Johnson out on the edge on a wheel route or some kind of short cross over the middle to try to hit a big play.
There's where I was getting at. I think that's how you beat Carolina on the ground. You have to get to the edge. That's where I think Seattle killed themselves last week with Marshawn Lynch playing. You can't run up the middle on Carolina.
Exactly. You're totally right. I was going to ask you this, actually, back to that game last week. Do you think Seattle had a better chance to win that game if Thomas Rawls had been playing instead of Marshawn Lynch?
Absolutely. I was going to text you that last week before the game got out of hand that I did not like Marshawn Lynch playing.
Because Rawls was really, really good for those 5 or 6 weeks, and he's explosive. Marshawn Lynch is the opposite.
I like the combination of Rawls and Kristen Michael.
Yeah.
And I thought that would have been a better matchup against Carolina than trying to run Marshawn Lynch up the middle.
Totally agree. I don't know if you saw, but it looks like that was his last game in a Seahawk uniform.
I know that we went back and forth a little bit. I think it might have been 2 weeks ago on quarterbacks, 1 year. Who do you take? And let me get your thoughts on that. 1 year, all things being equal.
Everything being equal, right?
Yes.
So I started writing down names on this list.
And we're talking about right now at this point in everybody's career. We're not talking like Peyton Manning at 25.
So Peyton Manning at 40 years old.
Yes.
Yeah, so I started writing down the list, and I have some scribbles. I have some cross-outs. Obviously, Brady, for me, is still...
Yes, number one.
Top spot, or at least has to be in the top 5. So, Aaron Rodgers would be 2 for me, or 1, whatever you...
I think Rodgers, too.
I have Big Ben at 3. And then this is where I started crossing people out and putting people in. Because if everything is equal, I think I like Phillip Rivers in my top 5.
Wow.
I know, but I think I do. If you give him a good team, I think he's a top 5 quarterback in the league. And then 5, I have Cam Newton.
Where does, I know this is how the conversation got started, but where does Russell Wilson fall on that list?
He's in between 6 and 10 for me somewhere.
Interesting.
I think if you stuck Russell Wilson the last 3 years, now you can't erase history, I get it. If you stuck him on a team like Detroit with some offensive weapons, the defense is atrocious and no running game, I think Detroit's record is exactly the same.
It's an interesting debate. I actually would like to see Wilson on a team that doesn't have a good defense to see if he can elevate his play. I don't know that he can, but I can't say he can.
Right. That's where I struggle too. But obviously I leaned the first way.
Yeah, I guess F4. When you say all things being equal, I guess you probably have to go Cam Newton, and then I put Wilson at 5.
Yeah, I mean that's fair. Wilson obviously has done a lot more than Rivers in the playoffs. Just if all things are being equal, I think the Seahawks win a Super Bowl with Phil Rivers that year. Their defense was one of the best defenses of all time.
Knowing what we know, how far down the list do you have Joe Flacco?
Oh, interesting. I saw some news about him today too. That he's willing to restructure his contract because he realizes now how detrimental it is to the team. I have Joe Flacco. I would have him behind Luck, behind Ryan, behind Palmer, behind Breeze, behind Cam, obviously, behind Russell, behind Cutler, I think, for me.
Wow.
Yeah, I like Cutler a little bit. I think behind Derek Carr.
Oh, jeez.
I like Derek Carr a lot. I think he's in the conversation now. It's only, I guess if you're only doing it for 1 year right now, he's got to be ahead of Winston and Mariota, but he's terrible.
Him or Eli Manning?
Oh, definitely Eli. Not even close.
Wow.
Not even close for me.
Interesting.
He had a great 4-game stretch. People forget, though, that they should have been knocked down in Denver.
Yeah, agree.
And it was a Hail Mary. He stinks. I'm sick of Joe Flacco even being discussed in that. People get enamored by his huge arm, and I get it. He throws a beautiful, beautiful ball, but if you sit down and watch Baltimore Ravens games, he's terrible. Terrible. It holds the ball, misses wide open guys, has no touch on the ball. If you want a guy that can sling one 40 yards down the seam to a tight end, then he's your man. But other than that, I don't want any part of him.
Oh, very interesting. You better be careful with all the purple around this weekend if they hear the podcast.
I hope they're listening.
Prediction for the NFC Championship.
Oh, this one's tough, too. These are, we have 4 really good teams, so it's tough to make these picks. But I'm going to go Carolina. I'm going to go Carolina 26, Arizona 23.
I'm pretty close. I have Arizona 27-23.
Yeah, I can't argue with you. I mean, I like Arizona's talent a little bit more. I think the best unit on the field is that front 7.
Obviously, we disagree here. Do you like New England enough to make it an official?
I don't know. I just don't know. Probably not, actually.
Yeah, I don't really like anything that much either. Perhaps that first half over-under line.
I do like the under, yes. I would rather play the under than New England for the game.
I'll dig that up and see what it is, and we'll tweet it out. We're 25-21 on the year after the Seahawks loss. We're guaranteed over 500 record in football. Probably need one more win, though, if we're going to play the Super Bowl to guarantee people make money off us this year.
Yeah, that one bowl weekend where we just went nuts kind of hurt our percentage there.
Yeah, not that, and I don't think we started till about week 5 or 6 picking. I know you were hot.
Good point. Yeah, I forgot about that. And usually week 1 in the NFL, you can make some hay.
Yeah, that, and you were hot all year in college.
Yeah, we didn't really make any college picks during the year.
No. So you have Carolina, New England. As far as your predictions go, what's the line?
Super Bowl line, I think actually Now it will change if one of these teams blows either Denver or
Yes,
Arizona out.
right. Assuming that doesn't happen.
Actually, is going to be favored by 1 or 2.
Yeah, I'm assuming that doesn't happen and there's no significant injury.
Yeah, right. I could see it floating around Carolina 1.5 to 2. You might see when it first opens, I could see kind of like the Redskins Packers, where some books have one team favored and other books have the other favored.
How do you pass up a chance to take Brady as an underdog in the Super Bowl?
Yeah, I'm hoping that it's Carolina like 2.5. I'm almost hoping they beat Arizona up pretty good.
Yeah.
And Gostkowski has to hit a game winner at the buzzer or something, and it's like 13-10, and New England's somehow a 3.5 point dog.
Yeah, I agree.
Because then I would love Belichick.
I have a couple props for the NFC as well. I'll run them by you. Palmer, 286.5 passing yards.
Kind of like the over there. I'm not sure how many times he's even been under that this year.
Yeah, that's minus 115.
Yeah, that doesn't smell too bad.
Palmer, 2 touchdown passes.
Stay away.
David Johnson, 63.5 rushing yards.
Rushing or total?
Rushing.
I like the under.
That's minus 115.
I like the under.
Fitzgerald, 68.5 receiving yards.
I don't want to touch that because I don't know how they're going to use him in this game.
Cam, total completions, 19.5.
No part of it.
Cam, touchdown passes, 1.5.
I could see that being sneakily under.
Unders plus 120.
Yeah, I could see that sneakily under. I could see them winning the game with him throwing one, him running one, and Stewart rushing for one.
Yeah, I think that's a good call. There's value there taking the under.
Yeah.
Cam rushing yards, 38.5.
Probably under, but God, if he goes over that, I think they win. That's how they win the game.
Stewart rushing yards, 72.5.
My first thought when you said that was over, but I think Arizona's only given up one 100-yard rusher in like the last 25 games or something.
Yes, you're right.
So I think there's some value in the under there as well.
Yeah, I think if you take away that first drive and that long run against Seattle, he didn't do a ton.
Yeah, and he's supposedly fully healthy from that foot injury, but you never know. I think there's a little value in the under there.
And Olsen receiving yards, 66.5.
I told, like, if he gets above that, someone needs to be fired. Like, it should be over under Greg Olsen. Does he get off the line of scrimmage?
Yeah.
He should be tackled every play.
These are interesting lines. I think I read last week that almost any way you did a teaser last week, you were a winner.
Correct. And to that point, I can't remember which book it was on the strip. They are not offering teasers this week because they got hurt so bad by him last week.
It seems like the books got beat up this year. Obviously, they're going to make money, but compared to every other year, it seems like they are not going to make as much.
I would actually not be surprised if one or two of them lost money because there was, especially the college bowl games, I know they got rocked.
And I was just going to say that
this can't be a very good year for them in totality.
I would have to think that they made some money on that backdoor Clemson.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Good point. I forgot about
that. Speaking of that briefly, that was a great college football game.
I think it's the second best college football game I've watched, that meant something like that. Since USC Texas.
Yeah.
Awesome college football game. Both defenses made a couple plays when they had to. Special teams was key to the game, in my opinion.
Oh, definitely.
Deshaun Watson played out of his mind. He kept them in the game, basically, or kept them, almost won the game for him. And then the tight end from Bama just looks like an NFL player, even though they never used him before.
I saw that the coach or the playoff committee is making some changes. I pray that they come out and say that strength of schedule is so key, so we see a lot more of matchups of caliber of those two teams.
Yeah, I don't know what the changes are going to be either. I saw some of the members were mixed up a little bit, but apparently that is how the contracts work every year or two. They're supposed to mix up the members of the committee. But I agree. I hope they change some of the weighting system. I hope they go to a weighted system where it's across the board, not for one team. They base it on X, and the other team it's Y. So I think you're right there.
I think we didn't have the podcast last week, so your thoughts on the Washington Bravehearts, the season and moving forward.
I took the Packers, so I was right about that. And not to pat myself on the back, but I think the last thing they said was that the Washington defense had not played an elite quarterback, and when they faced Rodgers, that clearly showed the glaring weakness. Their secondary is pathetically terrible. They were in that game. The score was worse than it looked. They were up. I think they were up. I can't remember what the score was. I think they were up by 4 or 5, and they were driving. They were at the Green Bay 40, and Cousins fumbled, and that was the game right there.
I think I text you the next day. How much does the game change if Jackson gets in the end zone and it's 9-0 or 10-0?
Totally different game.
Yeah.
They showed the sidelines. Whole team was demoralized, only getting 3 there.
Yep.
Stadium was dead silent. I mean, you just feel that there was a difference.
Yeah, agree.
It almost gave the Packers that quiet momentum that they needed.
Are they finally headed in the right direction with some of the management changes they've made?
Yeah, McLuhan's really good.
Yep.
You can already tell that his roster changes have made a big difference. Obviously, they need to have a good draft, but that's his specialty is drafting players. So I'm fully confident they'll make great use of the draft. I'm more interested in seeing what players are not on the roster next year, because I think you'll see some pretty big names be cut.
Early prediction where RG3 ends up.
I have no idea. Everyone keeps saying Dallas, but that's almost too obvious. I heard something that Hugh Jackson is intrigued in Cleveland, but I'm not sure how you do that after the Johnny Football stuff.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be shocked to see him come in as a backup for the Jets and let him compete with Fitzpatrick.
Are they going to cut Geno Smith?
Yeah, you have to, right? I don't know. I'd rather have Griffin as a backup than Smith.
Oh, I agree.
So I could see him someplace like that. I wouldn't rule out, now I don't know what Kubiak's thoughts are, but I wouldn't rule out Denver for him either.
Yeah, the one place that I've heard also is Houston.
You would know better than I. Is that an O'Brien type of guy?
I don't know. I really don't know what O'Brien's thinking. I would think that he would want to put all his money towards Bradford, but that's a scary proposition. Well, while Bradford's name's brought up, what do you think happens to him?
I heard he was asking for $24 a year.
Yeah, that hasn't been confirmed or denied. Supposedly there was talks before the year, and his agent asked for 24, which, I throw a number out there, see if the team's going to bite. I don't blame him if it's true. And I think
I don't either.
I think Philly was willing to start the talks at 18.
I think that's a fair number for him, because I think that's what Cousins is going to be around too. What's weird and interesting is I think everything is going to come down to where Bradford goes. I think that is the key piece that needs to fall before other guys go elsewhere.
If I
It's
had.
weird. Bradford's almost in a power position here because
Yes.
I think a few teams want him.
If I had to rank the field, I would put the San Francisco 49ers as the favorite.
You think Chip wants him back?
I think Chip wants to take a look at Blaine Gabbert. I would put money down that Colin Kaepernick has no chance to start.
I don't disagree with that either. From what Schefter said that Chip didn't even talk to Kaepernick before he signed on or agreed to terms there.
Yeah, I think Chip would like to see if he can make Blaine Gabbert maybe like an Alex Smith type. And if not, I think he turns his attention to Bradford.
That would be interesting. I mean, I know I did not watch Gabbert at all this year, but I do remember him being sort of athletic in college.
Yeah.
Not Colin Kaepernick athletic or Griffin athletic, but he could move the pocket.
If that is the case, if it's either Bradford or Gabbert, does Kaepernick have any value anywhere, or is he intriguing to anybody?
I don't know. Someone will try to rebuild him. I have no idea who would that be.
Yeah.
I have no clue. I don't know what type of offense he would fit. I mean, he was so good when he was running that option. Someone would have to go back to that, I think.
Any of the coaching hires surprise you? Chip in San Fran?
Not surprising.
McAdoo in New York?
No, not surprising.
Peterson in Philly?
Obviously surprising.
Malarkey in Tennessee?
Shocking.
How bad is that situation if he's the coach?
I don't know what they're doing there.
I read...
what did he go, 1-8 when he was the interim coach? What did he do to deserve this job? I
read that they hosted some of the owners' meetings. They were in charge, and their owner wasn't even attending most of them.
It's bizarre. It's almost like they're trying to lose.
Hugh Jackson in Cleveland?
Not surprising. I think that's a really good hire, actually.
Dirk Cutter in Tampa?
No. Got to keep Jameis happy.
Did I miss any?
I don't. Adam Gase.
Oh, Gase in Miami, yeah.
Which is a good hire. A little bit surprising that he would want that job over the others, I guess.
They did hire Jim Washburn, who is the wide nine guy, the defensive line wide nine guy, who I think it's a good hire to try and revive Sue.
Yeah. Let me get your thoughts on the Peterson hire.
I don't know if he's going to be successful or not. As I said in a previous podcast, it almost seems like Andy all over again. But I do know that Chip was not going to be successful next year, so I'm willing to roll the die.
Yeah, it's a little weird to me that they tried Chip, they're just going straight back to Andy Reid, but
I do think that Lurie thought that he could get John Harbaugh or at least get more serious in talks, or that Peyton was going to be available.
Yes. John Harbaugh would have been interesting.
After that, I think it's almost... I think Hugh Jackson's probably the best of the bunch. Maybe Gase because of what he's done, but I almost think it's throw a dart and see what happens with the other guys.
So
I like the Jim Schwartz hire as the defensive coordinator.
Yeah, so do I. I was just about to bring that up. And my next question was, are you okay with Peterson over what seemed like just a glance over of Gase?
The only thing I can think of is that Gase didn't blow them away in the interview. I think they were either first or second to interview Gase. And I think the other elephant in the room is Howie Roseman. Maybe Gase didn't want to work with him.
They don't really have a quarterback situation either, and I know Gase is a quarterback guy, so that maybe has something to do with it too. Yeah,
that's the Bradford situation there is so intriguing. If they let him walk, I mean, you're basically signing up for Paxton Lynch, Carson Wentz, Hackenberg, or I'm leaving one out because Goff's going to be gone. I don't know. I can't remember the other guy.
I think it'll be I think Paxton Lynch will probably be gone by that point as well.
My hope is that they trade down and try and get a second rounder. Because I think Tunsil will be gone, and I think Stanley from Notre Dame will be gone, which is their other glaring need at tackle. I think you trade down to
they're in an awkward spot in the draft if we're looking forward.
Yeah, that's why winning that Giants game was killer.
Yeah, they're in a really awkward spot.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see what Peterson focuses on as their, obviously besides quarterback, as their biggest need to address.
Well, they have him. They have Frank Reich, who's the next quarterback, and they brought in DiFilippo to be the quarterback's coach. He's the one who worked with Derek Carr the last 2 years. So they have
That's
three.
What I wanted to ask you about was Frank Reich. What are your thoughts on that? Because
Peterson,
he was a hot name for the Maryland job.
I don't really know much
about. Canned in San Diego because their offense was so bad.
I don't know much about him other than the San Diego stint. Peterson came out in the press conference and said he's going to call plays. So I don't know really the value of bringing in a big name offensive coordinator if you're going to call the plays. And I guess I'm looking at it half glass full and hoping that he just had no talent in San Diego.
I'm not a fan just from reading about him from guys that are plugged in at Maryland, but I have no idea really anything about him either.
Yeah, I'm not totally on board. It almost seems like he was a kind of a name when Maryland was talking about him and just a little before that, and then after that I never heard after him again.
Right, exactly. It was a weird 2-week stretch where he was popular for almost no reason.
How's the vibe on DJ Durkin down there?
People love him.
Yeah.
He's gotten some pretty good recruits. Killer though was they lost Haskins, the local kid who was a solid verbal for what felt like almost a year.
Yep.
He kind of went quiet after the Durkin hiring, and then it popped up the other day that he had flipped his verbal to Ohio State, so that was a pretty big loss.
Was Edsel?
People seem to really like him so far.
Was the previous coach that influential in recruiting? Or is Durkin just not compatible with what Haskins?
It wasn't the coach; it was the coordinator Loxley.
Loxley,
the interim head coach.
Yep.
He had very, very, very strong ties recruiting around the DMV area. Guys loved him. So
where did he end up?
More of the issue.
Where did Loxley end up?
That is a good question. Let me look that up real quick.
Yeah, and reading when Maryland was looking to hire, that was the biggest positive for Loxley was his recruiting ties.
Yeah, I mean, he was the guy that was really getting hot on the recruiting trail. It doesn't look like he has landed anywhere yet.
Yeah, that'll be interesting to see where he does end up. It almost would behoove a Virginia or Virginia Tech to go after him.
Yeah, exactly. Just to have his pipeline.
Yeah.
From what I understand, though, his head got a little bit big after he was named interim coach, and some of the recruits publicly said that their decision was tied with him.
Right.
So my guess is he wants either a coordinator position or a coordinator's type salary, which I doubt anyone's going to give him.
Yeah, I gotcha.
So.
Anything else you want to touch upon in the pod?
Let's see. I think we just about covered it all.
Major PGA preview next week?
Yeah, we'll have a big yearly preview next week. I don't know. I can't remember what the last thing we talked about with golf was, but just there's been 2 events in the calendar flip. One at Kapalua, which Spieth ran away with, so he doesn't seem to be too rusty. And then last week, Snedeker lost in the other Hawaii tournament to Fabian Gomez, who bagged his second PGA Tour win, and looks like a pretty sure thing to be on the Argentinian Olympic team. Yeah,
that's interesting. I forgot about the Olympics. Yeah, so...
it looks like Argentina, you'd expect Cabrera to be there, but it looks like it's going to be Gomez and Emiliano Grillo, another young Argentinian that won earlier this year. So the tour is in Palm Springs this week, and big field, not the deepest of field, but a lot of players. Kuchar, Zach Johnson, Billy Horschel, your big names heading it up out there.
In Dubai.
Oh, and Dubai, the European tour. That's where a lot of the big names are: Stenson, Rory, Spieth, Fowler, etc., etc. But your leader overnight, the young Bryson DeChambeau, the American amateur, at 8 under, who looks like he will turn pro after the Masters. He has an exemption from the Masters from being the U.S. Am champ, so I think he's going to use that and then turn pro.
Yeah, I'm setting aside 2 to 3 minutes just to talk about DeChambeau next week in the pod.
Yeah, interesting kid that we'll get more into.
Yeah, so we got PGA preview next week. The following week will be the Super Bowl preview. And then it'll be college basketball and NBA. We probably got to get into a mid-season report as we head down the stretch.
Yeah, good point. The NBA almost halfway.
And then after that, it'll be combine and draft talk.
My specialty, and I'll let you hit on a baseball preview since I don't care about that sport.
I'm getting to be in that boat as well.
But your flight fills are so good this year. I can't believe you're not into it.
Until they start putting HGH and gummies in the dugouts, I'm out.
Well, I would be all in for that.
Yeah, so no official play right now. We'll look at that first half over-under and tweet it out if it's an official. But that's all I have for the pod.
Yeah, that's all I got too. I would say maybe if New England's line dips under 3, maybe we take a second look, but that's about it.
Agree. Stay safe and go out and stock up for the weekend with the blizzard.
We're already fully stocked. The fridge is stocked. The pantry stocked. We're good to go. So you and the fam stay safe, bud. Enjoy the sports.
You too. Great job by you today.
As always, you too.
Talk to you soon. See you.